Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the Raw and Unscripted Show with yours truly, Christopher Rausch, your No Excuses coach, the place where we help you change your perspectives and your attitudes and your beliefs about your past, present, and your future so you can live a kick-ass, unstoppable, authentic life. We appreciate you guys joining us, whether you're here live on the video cast that we do every single Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or of course you're listening to us in any number of 30 plus countries here on the audio podcast. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I appreciate you guys. We're celebrating show episode number 320. We've been doing this now for over 6 years, and I'm pretty excited about tonight's topic because it's something that I literally decided on Sunday evening. I was trying to decide what show I was going to do this week. And it occurred to me that there is a lot of things that are happening in the world today in regards to mental health, right? There is no shortage of things that can stress us out if we pay attention to social media or the news, quote unquote, the news. But more importantly, I heard that it was Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And it dawned on me, Chris, you're a pretty strong individual. You're a strong male. You inspire other males. Perhaps a conversation might be in order to help men who might be struggling right now, dealing with a lot of the different things that are going on in our social media landscape with reference to what you might have heard called toxic masculinity. I myself have not really dove down that rabbit hole, so this is going to be an eye-opening experience for all of us. But more importantly, this is an aspect of conversation for our mental health, men's mental health. So guys, if you're listening, tune in, make sure you write things down, because the two individuals I have on this first of 3-part series are pretty incredible human beings. They have both been on the show, I believe multiple times, both this show and the Unfiltered Experience. So I have a strong relationship with them in that respect, but they're also personal friends of mine and people that I respect in the space of helping other individuals get vulnerable, get real, get authentic, and more importantly, really take responsibility and discipline in our lives to become the men that we're supposed to be. And ladies, if you're listening, this does not exclude you. By all means, participate in this conversation, because I'm sure that you have men in your life that perhaps could benefit from this conversation tonight. So listen in, feel free to ask us questions if you have questions about what's going on in the male mental health awareness spectrum, which is a very broad spectrum. But I'm excited for the conversation tonight. I'm more excited for the feedback that I'll potentially get from this episode. So if you are so inclined, feel free to send me an email at info@noexcusescoach.com if this is something that resonates with you, because we're going to be doing 2 more episodes on this, and I would love your feedback on what you would like to see me focus on in regards to this, because there's so many different aspects and relationships, aspects of this that we could talk about, which are relationships. We could talk about career. We could talk about finance. Tonight, I know we're going to be talking about spirituality, because my 2 guests are central to that. And that's one of the major points that they wanted to bring up tonight. So without any further hesitation, welcome Robert Broker to the house. Appreciate you being here, brother. I appreciate you. Feel free to ask us any questions, and feel free to always, as always, give your feedback as well. So please help me in welcoming my dear friends and my brothers from other mothers, Mr. Lee Hite and Mr. Christopher Allen, a fellow Christopher in the house. What's going on, gentlemen?
What's going on? What's going on?
What's up? What's up?
Thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate you guys for doing this at the last minute. I literally reached out to you, I think, on Sunday and said, hey, are you guys open up for having this conversation and talking about men's mental health? Both of you had no hesitation in saying, yeah, Chris, I am there. So thank you guys for this. Because I didn't do introductions for each of you, I mean, I kind of introduced you as my friends and brothers. I'm going to allow you this opportunity for you to each introduce yourself. And then as part of that introduction, I would love for you to share what you want people to get most tonight out of this conversation. What do you want to share most with people for them to walk away feeling more inspired, more enlightened, more armed, more prepared for growth? So I will start off with you, Mr. Lee Hite. Introduction and what you want to get across most tonight.
Okay. Well, I am Lee Hite, also known as Reverend Lee Hite. I've been a minister with the Centers for Spiritual Living, both full-time, part-time, so on, for, going on 35 years now. 35 years. I guess the big thing, as I thought about this, there's a lot that goes into men's mental health for me, and especially from a spirituality perspective. I mean, there's a strong intersection between the two. And for me, a couple things come up. First of all, the vulnerability, our vulnerability and transparency about who we are and what we bring to the table are essential. And they're superpowers when we embrace them. And that's number one. Number two is that remembering that we don't have to be perfect, which is for
I
me,
agree.
I mean, there's a lot of psychology back of it and research back of it. You know, first child syndrome, which I have participated in. The first child tends to be a perfectionist, and I have found myself to be that. And it's gotten in my way over and over and over again. Rather than doing something and making a mistake, I'd rather just not do it because
I feel you.
I don't want to make a mistake. Because if I make a mistake, I'm not perfect. If I'm not perfect, I'm not good enough, and I'm not worthy of X, Y, Z. Da, 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 all the stuff that follows after that. So those are a couple of things that popped into my head right off the bat, as I sat and thought about it. The thing I would like people to walk away with, especially the men and the women who love them, is that we can love ourselves just the way we are and still know at the same time that there is growing to do. And that when we can find a place where we can love ourselves as we are today, that sets us up with a very, very strong foundation going forward.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Christopher Allen, same for you. Introductions and what you would like to get across most tonight to the people listening and watching.
Absolutely. First of all, man, I want to give you much props for staying true to the game, staying true to your podcast, staying true to your audience. It's always bringing value. That's big ups to that. And also, thank you for just allowing me the opportunity as one of the first guests on your podcast, on this new series of podcasts that you're doing, as one of the first guests, man. I'm truly honored and privileged you thought enough about me to actually invite me to share my thoughts.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
My name is Chris Allen, man, Jacksonville, Florida. I'm just a humble servant, man. Been through a lot, experienced a lot, dealt with a lot. God has truly dealt with me over the last few years that has just given me a true different perspective on life, things that I'm doing, people that I'm touching, the impact that I'm leaving behind or that I'm impacting people's lives, the footprints that I'm leaving behind me. It's really more prevalent now in my life than ever before. And I don't take this mission lightly at all. So I'm on it. I'm a personal fitness coach and a personal mindset coach as well. And so your podcast and what my audience is doing is truly just resonating with me because I do want to leave an impact. And you and I talk about this a lot, the impact that we want to leave behind. When people begin to talk about the Chris's of this world and how they left things behind. And I truly want to be a part of that movement. And so again, man, thank you for just allowing me to be on this podcast with you and sharing my thoughts today. I'm excited to jump into some of these conversations. What do I want people to walk away with? There's so much I could say about that, but I think mental health, I think for me, mental health for men does not make you less of a man. Dealing with mental health does not make you less of a man. In fact, I believe it makes you more of a man once you begin to understand what you're going through mentally. I believe in this new generation that we're building, your podcast, there's a slew of other podcasts. I believe that we're building a different blueprint of masculinity in this world. And I believe that blueprint dealing with masculinity, it's one that allows strength to coexist with softness, leadership. And you talked about this, Lee, you talked about vulnerability. And I believe that when we put all these things together, we're going to do it with a spirit of grace behind it, a spirit of grace behind it. And I always say this: Superman, even though he was Superman, he also had a Clark Kent inside of him.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, Superman and Clark Kent couldn't coexist in the public's eye at the exact same time. And I think men are dealing with this a lot.
Yeah.
You know, we go into this world and we want to be Superman, but we're silently Clark Kent.
That's a great point.
You see what I'm saying? We're silently Clark Kent. And if we were able to bring these two things together and have these two things coexist, I think that's a different type of man.
That is true. That is powerful, Chris. I appreciate you saying that, because that's something I really want to dive into, is that less of a man thing you just said. I mean, it's so important for us to really focus in on that, because as kids, as boys, what are we told? Boys don't cry, be a man, suck it up, don't show your feelings, don't appear to be weak, be strong, be all these different things. You know, as a man, we're doing that. And so what you just identified is very critical, is that less of a man, when that judgment happens within ourselves, that I am not a man, I'm not man enough. Wow. And I think that's important, that we're going to get across to people tonight, is how we can change that perspective and kind of go back to what Lee was saying about, you know, about perfection. Right. We're brought up, when we go through that conditioning process when we're kids. The research has shown that from 0 to 5, that's really when we become the people that we're going to become. And you think about that, like all the different things that have been told to us in those years, all the different social constructs that we're told about and we're thought to believe, really much make our identity. And then we go through life thinking, okay, if I'm right, then I'm good. Right. We get our good grades. We get good. We pay attention. We don't cause trouble. We get good things. But when we're bad, then we're punished. Then we're not good enough. Then we're not worthy. And then we carry those belief systems into our adulthood. And then we're constantly seeing that happen in our life, because that's what our system goes to, is, oh, geez, I screwed that up again. I'm not perfect. And I think that's important. I believe that's important tonight, to know that there is never going to be anything perfect in our life, but if we're constantly looking for that opportunity to grow and to sit in the silence of who we're becoming rather than who we were, I think that's something that people can get tonight. I want to go back to something you said, Lee, and you said worth, right? Talk to me about your journey in your own self-worth, and also how it relates to your identity of who you thought you should become versus who you are becoming.
Wow,
it's a flowing process, and I know
4 hours to dive. Yeah. Okay. Can you restate that real tight one more time?
Talk to us about the journey of your self-worth and how it has coincided, I guess, with your identity of who you thought you were supposed to be versus who you're becoming.
Okay. Self-worth. Wow. I'm a child of divorce. My parents divorced when I was 5 going on 6. Then they got remarried when I was 8 going on 9.
Remarried to each other?
They were, yes, they got remarried to each other. Yes. So I had the double whammy of dad leaving because I wasn't good enough. This is the message, right? This is the messaging. So dad left because I wasn't good enough. So I was the oldest. So unconsciously, I stepped into the male head of household role, because that's what the world tells us, right? The oldest male in the home,
right,
is that person. Dad comes back 3.5, 4 years later. The message is, you're not good enough. So I had to come back and fix the stuff you're screwing up.
This is the story you told yourself, or this is what you were being told by your mom?
Yeah, no, I've gone back and done all the, yeah. And excuse me. once I came to that once I got that, once I became aware of that, right, the spiritual tools, the meditation, the prayer work, the study, all that came into play. Because our whole thought process, right, what we give attention to tends to perpetuate itself. What we focus on tends to grow.
Yep.
All of that works, right? So what I'm giving attention to, if I'm sitting around whining and complaining about how mom and dad screwed me up and I keep telling that story, right? I keep repeating that story over and over again. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes. Can you go deeper on that? Because I know that's probably identifying probably 80% of the people that are listening to this tonight is that blame story.
Sure. Oh yeah. No, the blame, whether it's blaming somebody else or blaming ourselves, right? Whether I'm blaming somebody else or for giving me or I take on a message that I have received from the world, from anybody, people, places, and things. A fifth grade school teacher, ninth grade bully, 12th grade, senior, class advisor, whoever it is out there in the world that's fed us this message that somehow we've internalized, and then we repeat it over and over and over. The committee in our head grabs a hold of that and starts working it over and says, "Oh yeah, that's true, because look back, da 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 da, and da 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 da, and da 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 da." And so because of all this, you're not worthy, you're not successful, you're not going to make enough money, this is never going to work out for you, you're never going to have the relationships you want, you're never going to have all the stuff.
Not enough, right? What you're saying is not enough.
Not enough. I am just not enough. I am just not good enough. I am not worthy of having all the goodness, all the success, all this. When in truth, I come into this world and it's all there waiting for me to claim it.
True.
If I get my head right. When I get my head right. You see, and that's just that right there, that subtle little reframing is the kind of thing that can make all the difference.
Massively.
Moving from if I get my head right to when I get my head right.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of shifting on the fly comes with practice. Right?
What do you recommend for people to become, to have that awareness and that desire to catch yourself instead of playing the victim? And then I'm going to get to you, Chris, with a question.
Right, because that's the kind of thing that comes with the study, with looking at the books, with doing the meditation. Even going to. I mean, I've been around this game long enough, around the spirituality, the personal growth and spirituality world for a long time, since 1974.
Damn, you're old.
Wow. Yeah, I am old.
Oh, sorry.
I was 5.
I started studying advanced metaphysics in 1974.
Damn. So, you read the book Cybernetics, right?
Read the book Psycho-Cybernetics and did a book report on it my junior year in high school. Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
I read that in my 40s.
Wow.
Anyway, but whether you're reading the Bible, the Quran, the Tao Te Ching, the Science of Mind, Psycho-Cybernetics, Be Here Now by Ram Dass, anything by Thomas Merton. I mean, I'm looking at books on my bookshelf right now. Seed of the Soul by Gary Zukov, Living the Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes. All these books, I mean, even going back to, like I said, the Bible and before, they all say the same thing. And you know what that one thing is that they all say? In no uncertain terms, it is done unto us as we believe.
Mm-hmm. As a man,
our belief sets the limit to our experience. Our belief not only sets the limit to our experience, but it colors our experience. And it's not necessarily the images that we create, but it's the feelings back of them.
Yeah.
that make the difference, because we're not after the picture. As much as we think we're after the house and the new car and the it's not that.
It's deeper.
It's the feelings that those things generate inside of us that we're after. So if we focus on the feeling in the creative process as we manifest, right? We choose to cultivate those inner feelings, and those are the things that will drive us forward. Those are the things that will draw to us that sense of self-worth. And we begin by developing the mental atmosphere, the mental and the emotional atmosphere on the inside to produce the experience on the outside, which gives us the experience on the inside. And we that self-perpetuating cycle all of a sudden takes hold, and our worth grows. Our feeling good about ourselves grows. And I'm going to leave it right there because I was about to dive into something.
I love what you're saying.
But I'll stop right there. Yes.
I love what you're saying, because it is that one step forward every single day. It's that little focus every single day to better ourselves. And you've demonstrated that with the books that you've read. Chris, I want to come to you. What are your thoughts on what Lee shared? And then I have a follow-up question for you on that.
That's good, man. I think that's powerful stuff. I think that's why so many people need therapy as opposed to therapeuticness, right? Sometimes we deal with therapeutic. We go to the beach, we hang out, we just kind of do that self-talk. But therapy helps us unlock that self-talk. Where did that stuff come from? What are you actually dealing with that actually gave you that narrative, that reel that plays over and over and over again? And I think a lot of times people don't deal with the therapy part of it, especially as men. We don't deal with the therapy part about it. And then we go from childhood to adulthood, to adolescence to adulthood, carrying these same programming that's just stinking thinking. And it just crushes us. It just crushes us. So that's why therapy is so very, very important. So reading books, these are just therapists in book form. That's all it is. And so, I really believe there's not a problem that you can have that somebody hasn't already articulated in a book somewhere.
Amen.
Anything that you're dealing with, somebody has already articulated that in a book format. But the problem that most people have is that we don't want to pick up that book. We don't want to pick up that book and read.
Why not?
Why not? That's a great question.
Thank you.
Great freaking question, man. Why not?
It's all about timing, right? It's all about receptivity and timing for wherever it is that we're at on the journey, but being at least open to the opportunity for that change, right? As opposed to being so closed off about this is who I am and blah, blah, blah. And I'm stuck to my story because it's safe and it's certain and it's predictable. And by golly, it keeps me normal and safe.
You've already created that reel for yourself. And so now you don't want to go against with the thing that you've already set for yourself. You've already created this storyline. Right. And like Lee said, and now you're just playing that storyline out. You don't want to change that book in mid program. My computer's about to go out. Hold on 1 second for me, guys. Okay. Sorry about that, Chris. Hold on for me.
What?
So
I've never been put on hold on my own podcast before. Wow. The audacity. I'll take this moment to say thank you, Katie, for supporting the conversation. Sorry. Choosing to cultivate more self-awareness to work on healing and rewriting your limiting stories is all part of your self-love. Yes, thank you, Katie, for joining us. Appreciate you for doing that. And also we got Robert in the house who is sharing book suggestions. So thank you, Robert, for that. And we have Mr. Christopher Allen back who put me on hold.
Yes, sorry about that. I looked at my little computer and think the light was going off. I was like, oh no, I do not want to have this thing done. Let me go get the charge. Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries.
Yeah, as I was saying, man, I just think that that's a reel that we're playing over and over again. But as fast as we can get that therapy, the more better. And like I said, there's not something that you're going through that somebody had already written a book for you. So I would encourage men to, and especially the way the technology is now, man. God, dog. Can you imagine, guys? When we were going through what we were going through life early on, and we had the access to what this generation past. Can you imagine knowing what you know now? If you had the tools and the resources back then, knowing what you know now. Oh my God.
Gee, I would have probably advanced my healing probably at least 10 years. I mean, now you have Google, I tell people there's no excuses. No fucking excuses. You have Google, YouTube, Chat GBT. The resources are infinite to be able to solve our problems. But it's again going back to that receptivity to sit there and say, okay, I'm aware that I have a situation or a problem or an opportunity, and I am vested in taking responsibility, which is something we got to talk about. As men, as people, we got to take responsibility for where we're at in our life, as opposed to playing that blame game. So my question to both of you, I'm going to ask you both, but I'm going to share first. So I'm going to give you time to think about this. What was the lowest point for you in your life as a man? Now, I've asked this question before of my guests, like, what's the lowest point and what did you learn from it? But what was your lowest point as a man and what did you learn from it? And how did you come back from that? And I'll give you time to think about that. For me, there's been a few times where I really got to a low point. And one of the first low points that popped into my brain was my first marriage. We got married at 18, and probably around 23, we started having a lot of situations happening. Long story short, she's not going to watch this. I'm still friends with my ex-wife. My ex-wife and my best friend made conjugal awareness with each other on my birthday, no less.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. So at 23 years old, I had to have a rude awakening with myself as a man, not providing to my wife what she needed. So she went outside the marriage to find that satisfaction. And at first I played the blame. Like, this is your fault. I'm innocent. I'm going to school. I'm going to work. I'm going to the gym. I'm getting 3 hours of sleep a night and you're out here doing this. But as I heard myself say that awareness opened up, and I sat there and I thought, okay, Chris, if I can look at this from a different perspective, what responsibility do I have in my wife and my best friend getting together? I was so devoted to my growth that I was ignoring my husbandly responsibilities. I was paying attention to my schoolwork. I was paying attention to my work. I was paying attention to my growth, whatever I could make more money, however I could grow. Oh, by the way, I'm a husband in a marriage, and I had no frame of reference because I grew up with a mother who destroyed every male relationship she had in her life. So for me as a man, that was a low point, and sitting there saying, I'm not being there for my wife. I'm not being there in those ways. And if I'm going to take responsibility for this, I need to be a part of the solution, not part of the problem. So long story short, I had a conversation with them. I accepted my role in being so dedicated to everything else and apologized to my wife and said, I will make that different. And it was a really big learning opportunity for me to get vulnerable, get honest, put myself in a super uncomfortable position in the terms of like not feeling like a man. The way I looked and appeared to other people in my relationship, the fear of judgment. And so that was a big, big point for me to stop and sit there and say, okay, I'm not going to blame everybody else. I'm going to see what responsibility I have in the equation. Obviously, people have to take their responsibility too. But for me, it really started shifting things, because when I got into situations or I got into challenges, I stopped and said, okay, how can I look at this? Where do I have to take some responsibility in this? And it's never easy, but the short term is the fact that you have a sense of pride in yourself because you're not lying to yourself. You're not telling yourself those stories, which we've been talking about already in this broadcast, because that negative self-talk. I started finding that there was more opportunities for me to find solutions to my situations rather than be a victim to them and blame everybody else. So for you guys, what was that lowest point in your life as a man? And how did you kind of come back from that? What did you learn? Whoever wants to go first.
For me, if you don't mind, I first want to say something that you just commented on, man. I believe you summed it up perfectly, which is the answer I think that we were looking for. I believe that most men, they don't stop to get the help that they need simply because they've been programmed.
Right.
We've been programmed as a man that we're going to go out and we are providers, like you talked about. We're providers, and we're conquerors, and we're hunters, and we're killers, and we grind, and we compete, and who needs sleep? Sleep is for suckers. I mean, we sleep when we die. That's generally what we've been taught, right? That this is what manhood is all about. And so when you talked about you dealing what you were dealing with, you were doing what you were taught as a man. You go out, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this, but didn't take the time to sit back and say, wait a minute, I'm married now. There's another person that I have to actually deal with. Yep. And I don't know how to deal with this person in the midst of everything that I've been taught. Everything that I've been taught. I don't know how to do this. Does that mean, you know what I mean? So I think as men, that's what we need to understand, that if you're lacking in a particular area, if you're lacking something, you know it. I think when you look in that mirror, we know, if you really go back in time and look and say, Chris, am I treating my wife the best way that I know I'm supposed to be treating? Something on the inside, you're like, no, you're not. You need help in this area. But that pride kicks in, right? And you continue to keep doing this thing that you've been taught to do. But I think as a man, if we would stop for a moment and just work on the things that we know we need to be working on. If it's something that you feel that you're lacking, get that help, get that fixed. It's not going to just heal itself. It just doesn't overcome itself. You have to work on these things to become the better person. So, exactly. Yeah. So my lowest point, man, has happened a few years. I think I shared it I think I was on your podcast when I was dealing with it a few years ago. And I went through a really dark season in my life. And at the time, here it is, and this is something I want to talk about. At the time, I thought it was about the breakup, right? I was in a relationship. The relationship dissolved. And when it happened, I thought what I was dealing with was about the breakup. Yeah. But it wasn't until I went deeper, because I actually prayed this prayer. I said, God, if I'm going to go through this breakup and I'm going to have the heartbreak, I'm going to deal all these things, I want to go deeper into my personal life as well. Any childhood trauma that I've dealt with, any hurt that's there, I need you to uncover it, because I'm only going to cry one time. And this one time, I want it all to be together. You know what I'm saying? If I'm going to go through this pain.
I cry all the time.
No. It was a continuous cry, but it wasn't going to be about multiple different things. It was going to be, I'm in this thing. So does that make sense what I'm saying? So like, you're going to give it to me. Like, if you're going to give me this, give me all of this. Because I only want to do this one time.
One time.
I'm only going to do this one time. If it's going to be my father, if it's going to be the relationship with my mother, if it was going to be the heartbreak, if it was going to be me raising my children, if it was going to be my finances, whatever this heart thing is going to be, give it to me, because I'm only going to do this one time. Does that make sense?
As men usually say. Yeah.
Yeah. So that thing happened for me, man. And I went through a really, really dark place. But as a believer, one of the prayers, the thing that kept coming back to me over and over again was the children of Israel. When the children of Israel was leaving Egypt, they knew what Pharaoh was doing. Heartache, pain, slavery. It was crushing. They knew that. But they also understood the promise that God had given them, which was going to the promised land. So they knew where they were coming from. They knew where they were going to. The problem didn't happen until that middle passage. The Bible says in the middle passage, that's where they begin to murmur and complain. It was on their way to the promised land that they failed. And so as I began to find this journey that God had me on, one of the things that gave me peace was I wasn't going to murmur and I wasn't going to complain. I was going to receive each task. I was going to receive each moment. I was going to receive each heartbreak as they came. And trust me, they came. Friendships, money, relationships, things begin to fall by the wayside. And if I didn't pray, if I didn't understand God's mercy and God's grace, I would have begun to murmur and complain. But because I held fast to that word, I knew this is only happening because you're going to the other side. You're going to the other side because he had already showed it to me. So in that my faith, my spirituality, and I know this, we're gonna talk a lot about that. And I'm not trying to say, certain religions better than, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your relationship that you have with him, right? Not this thing that has been politicized or none of that. The relationship is what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it was a couple years ago, man, going through a relationship breakup that evolved into dealing with all those childhood traumas that I had put on the shelf. And I said, if I become this, I won't have to deal with that little boy that was molested. I won't have to deal with that little boy that was crushed. I don't have to deal with that little boy who was bullied. I don't have to deal with that little boy who grew up in poverty. I wouldn't have to deal with him if I became this.
Right.
And that little boy, even though I became these things, that little boy was still back there saying, what about me? What about me?
Yes.
And I never dealt with them. And so I had to go back through this process, and I had to deal with that little boy. And I had to write a letter. I wrote a letter to my 9-year-old self.
Love it. I've done that.
And I told him, I'm sorry because I left you behind. But as I began to outpour to that little boy, I said, I'll never leave you again. I'll never leave you again. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, that's what it was all about.
Reconnecting with the things that we have suppressed or repressed in our life in the sake of ego, which is something I want to get into in a minute, is talking about ego and identity. But Lee, I want to give you the opportunity, and thank you for sharing that, Chris. Josh, I'm going to get to your comments in just a minute. We got Josh in the comments lighting it up a little bit, saying the first comment says, first of all, thank you, Dad, for sharing that story. I learned somewhat about you. Second, therapy and counseling is so key. So thank you, Josh, for being here and recognizing your dad. And with that, Mr. Lee, what was that experience like for you? What was that lowest point as a man for you? I think I might know what it was, but please share that. And because this is powerful stuff that people need to hear. And that's, before you say that, I just want to just really key in on one of the undertones that have been talked about tonight, is the fact that vulnerability is key. Help is key. Especially this day and age where so many people are talking about mental health. There is no excuse for you to be sitting there in your shit when there are opportunities for you to go speak to licensed professionals and to get into men's support groups and to get peer-to-peer counseling and do these things and do the work and to be honest with yourself and heal that little boy or that little girl. I mean, definitely little boy, because we're talking about men's health.
Yeah.
Because that is so important, because I've done the same thing and I know Lee has done it as well. So, So what's your share, Mr. Lee?
Yeah, well, I mean, Chris, you've heard this story. Well, Christopher Rausch has heard this story. Chris,
two Chris's.
You got Chris squared here, right? And Josh, so good to have you here, Josh. That's my oldest. And I had a chat with him and the granddaughter before the show today, so it was great.
Nice.
So. All right, here we go. Lowest point was when I stepped into recovery for the first time.
Thank you for sharing that.
And I'm not going to I'm not going to go into the deep dive of all the ins and outs of
right
the addiction.
That's a 4-hour show, and plus they can go back and check out your other episodes here.
We've done that show already, so they can go back to the archives and.
I'm going to link them in here.
Yeah, there we go. Link that show. Absolutely. And when I went into recovery, worked on my recovery, cost me my first marriage, and I slipped back into it, and it cost me my second marriage.
2 marriages.
2 marriages.
Was it worth it?
The addiction? Absolutely not. And that's the thing. The thing is, we, those of us who have participated in addiction, think that it is helping us. We buy into the illusion that it is helping us deal with life, when it really all it's doing is numbing us to the realities that we refuse to face.
I know this is true.
And the thing to be mindful of is also in the process is transferring that energy into some other kind of addiction, into some other kind of process that takes me out of my life, that takes me out of living in a day-to-day, very intentional way. And excuse me, for me, with all the reams and reams, and I've gone back and I've looked, and a lot of what I shared early on, that story, a lot of that was absolutely the source of my addiction.
The story.
That whole story of the divorce and then the remarriage and the lack of self-worth and all the questioning and all the doubts and all the uncertainty is absolutely the foundational genesis for my addictive process.
Which also stems back to the idea of perfection, right?
Which also stems back to the idea of perfection. So I'd sit around and punish myself for not being perfect. Right. So I punish myself with addiction. I numb myself out with the process of participating in the addiction in waves. And it's always in waves. It's never just never just one thing, right? And so I not only have to be mindful of my own addictive process and behaviors, I have to be mindful of those things that could be gateways.
True.
To walking back down that road. Things that may seem to be dissociated from that, but they're not. Right? So my own tendency is to, or has been up until now, to hide out from feelings, to hide out from conflict, to hide out from things that bother me. I'll just put them in a box and put them on a shelf.
The same shelf that Chris put his on.
Just ignore them. Yes, the same shelf.
we got a male masculinity shelf up
here.
They're
all just having a party up there on the shelf, right? When the truth is, if I just took it out and looked at it and handled it, it'd be over. However, because of the whole addict mindset, which engages with the committee, which engages with that process of saying, "Oh, you're not enough. Oh, you're weak. Oh, you're not this. You're this. You're not this." I mean, all that dialogue that results from not facing the trauma, not getting the help that we need, all that stuff just comes bubbling up, and all it wants is to be acknowledged. Mm-hmm. That's all it wants. If we would simply pause and acknowledge it long enough to process the tears, like Christopher was saying, to have the feelings, to do the writing, to meditate on it, to share with a loved one. I mean, I am blessed with a partner right now, Katie, who will sit and listen to me rant.
That's good.
I've never had a partner who would do that for me.
That's massively important.
Who would hold the space for me to rant, be vulnerable, to share my feelings, even if it seems to be about something maybe that she's done when it's really not. It's me dealing with my stuff, and what she may have said or done or whatever just simply triggered that. And she has the awareness enough that I can go to her and I can say, we have like a 3-step way, like when we need support. It's like, okay, I just need you to sit and listen.
Yeah.
That's number one.
Tell the person what you need.
And I'll give credit where credit's due here in a minute. But number one is, I just need you to sit and listen. Number two is, hey, I need you to sit and listen. And, if, I just may need you just a little bit of feedback. And the third one is, hey, I would like to dialogue with you about this and have a conversation and really work through this. So there's 3 different levels
Love it.
of conversation that can be had. And we're not always great about doing it, but we have the tool, right? We have the tool. And the tool is from another podcast I listened to called Multiamory. And it's a whole communications toolbook they put together as a result of their podcast. And it's brilliant.
Yes, it is.
It's a brilliant communication tool. It says, before I start this,
Mhm. Set the expectation, what you need, right? Oftentimes we don't say what we need.
Right.
And so back to where we started with, the getting to where I am today is absolutely a result of all the work that came from going into recovery for the first time back in 98.
Wow. And
facing all the stuff. It's not like the work is not all done.
It never is. Then the problems change as you get older. They become new situations.
I'm glad you brought that up, because this is one of the things that came up as Christopher was talking, is that we face these problems, we face these challenges, and then we get 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, maybe 6 months down the road, and the same thing it's like the same thing pops up, and I go, wait, I thought about this. I thought I handled this.
Yeah.
And you did. However, what happens is like this journey we're on is it's not a ladder. We're not on a ladder.
Mm-hmm.
We're walking around a mountain, making progress up the mountain. And what's happening is all of a sudden I am overlooking the same problem, but I've changed. So the problem looks different, and the solution looks different, and the lesson looks different. And so I'm looking at the same thing, but from a different perspective.
I love it.
Because I've grown, because I've changed, and I get to look at it and go, oh, isn't that interesting?
That's what I'm going through.
That's good.
Right? It's like, I thought, not only did I think I handled this, I did handle this, and I get to look at this differently now and say, okay, am I done? Yes, I'm done. And we move on. Or is there something new that says, oh, I need to look at this again, and maybe there's another gift here for me, right? Because like Richard Bach says in Illusions, we seek our problems because we seek the gifts.
We seek what?
We seek our problems because we are seeking the gifts that they have for us.
Can you say that in a different way for people who might not understand the gifts?
We seek problems because inside every problem is a gift.
Right.
It's the gift of learning. Gift? There's the gift of learning, the gift of insight, the gift of deepening my own awareness, the gift of more connection with the people around me, the gift of more connection with my higher power. All the gifts that come out of making the mistakes and learning from them. It's like when Josh was young, he's still here. Josh will tell you that when he made a mistake, the first thing we said, or I said to him, was, okay, you made a mistake. What are you going to do differently next time?
Right. How are you going to change the pattern?
Mm-hmm.
Right. What are you going to do differently next time? Because we make mistakes. We all make mistakes. The difference is how we respond to them. And I was very, 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 very conscious about when he would make a mistake, saying, okay, we make mistakes, and what are we going to do next time? What are you going to do next time to make it different?
That's good. That's good.
The and part.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I want to dial it back in because we've been going for almost an hour, and I want to respect your guys' time. thank you everybody for who's commenting. I have another deep question for you guys. I came up with these questions and I really want to kind of get them out and get your both your takes on it. First, before I do that though, I just put a link in the chat for everybody who's watching live and on the replay. This is a chat. This is a chat. This is a link to what's called the hero's journey. Kind of what Lee was talking about. It's not linear. It's this up and down kind of thing. So if you check out this link, it's called the hero's journey. If you're listening on the podcast, if you go to YouTube and you type in the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell story, it's about an hour and 13 minutes. It's powerful for everybody to look at. And it talks about life, and it talks about that hero's journey and how we set off on that adventure. And we have to go through the trials and tribulations to learn those lessons, to become the next version of ourselves, to learn those lessons and become that next version of ourselves. So I just put the link up there. I just wanted you guys to listening or watching to be aware of that. My next question for both of you in respecting your time is I'll go to you, Chris. How has ego played a role in your mental health, for better or worse? Because we talked about ego before, and I really want to key in on this because it's so massively important.
Man, I think ego plays a huge part in it, negatively, because what happens is, like I talked about, we have this image of what we want other people to perceive us as, and then we play the role in that perception, which is our ego, right? And I think what happens is when that ego is nothing but what they say, edging God out, right? Yep. Of your definition, right? We've heard that. I don't know if that's what it means, but it sounds really, really good. Edging God out. So for me, I had a huge ego and a chip on my shoulder based upon where I wanted to be, and I was going to get there at all costs. And so ego could drive you, but it also can drive you in the wrong direction when you're not actually operating in the purpose that God has intended for you to be. Yes. And I was going in the wrong direction. I was going, I just happened to be going in the wrong direction. And it was all based upon my ego trying to fulfill this image of this perception of what I wanted others to perceive me as, not authentically who I believe that God had called me to be.
And so when did that shift for you? What happened for you to identify that the ego was, in a sense, betraying you?
I hate to say it, man, but I think it all stemmed in that same scenario. A few years back when I really had to come to myself and say, why am I actually doing all these things? Like, what is this for? Like, I'm like, Chris, you have no idea, bro. I'm literally at the beach every single day. And I told you about this. I'm literally at the beach every single day at 4 a.m. in the 4 a.m. in Jacksonville, Florida, at the beach. It's pitch black. I'm out there just before God, just crying out, why am I here? like, dude,
what do you want me to do?
What is up? like why is you waking me up in the morning? Why is you filling these lungs up with air? What is it that you had me to do? And it was in that moment, bro, that things just begin to line up and my purpose begin to line up. And I want to say this, man, I think it's so key, because if a man doesn't have, and then we talked about purpose, if a man doesn't have purpose in his life, he's merely just a man drifting. Because that drifting that man will do, if he doesn't have a purpose for his life, that man will fall into depression. He will be frustrated. And as Lee talked about, sometimes he'll be on a destructive pattern or behavior.
That punishment, that self-punishment.
Yeah. And I believe you have to anchor yourself. You have to anchor yourself in your faith. Now, once again, we're not talking about politicizing. We're not talking about whatever you believe. You got to anchor yourself in that faith. You got to anchor yourself in your family, anchor yourself in your services. Find something. You got to find something greater than yourself to live for. Because if you don't, you're going to fall into this thing. You're going to fall into that depression like I talked about. I for me, man, it was during those seasons that things just began to line up. And I had to get into a real understanding of what it was that God has for me and what I want to accomplish. And we had to understand one thing. I want to encourage everybody on this thing. And now you talked about this earlier, talk about perfection. Don't chase perfection. Don't chase perfection. We need to chase purpose. Don't chase growth. We need to chase purpose, man. And when we find that purpose for your life, when you find it, you protect it at all costs. You protect that purpose at all costs, bro.
Love it. Thank you. Same question for you, Mr. Lee. There's so many rabbit holes I can go down with that. But same question for you, Mr. Lee. And then I've got I got another question for you guys, and then we'll kind of wrap it up.
Ego. See, it's interesting because I think about ego very differently than most people.
Okay.
I'm going to preface it by saying that I'm very tired. I'm very, very, very tired of people making ego the bad guy or the bad girl. Because I go back to my martial arts training. I haven't really talked about that yet. So I go back to my martial arts training that says the moment there is an enemy, we are defeated.
Enemy from within or enemy outside?
Anywhere. The moment any enemy only exists right here anyway.
True.
The moment we have an enemy, we are defeated. So if I'm sitting here making ego the enemy, I've lost. What I do with the way I handle ego is I make a very strong distinction between ego as the seat of my personality and egocentrism. Because what most people are talking about when they're talking about the negative aspects of ego is egocentrism. And and being self-centered and being narcissistic and all that. And the truth is, because most people weren't talking about the negative aspects, they're talking about ego in a negative way. What they're pointing at is some form of narcissism.
Absolutely.
So ego is not the bad guy here, right? It's me letting me put me first in every situation.
Isn't that self-love?
No.
Why not?
No, it's not. No, it's
man. I love myself. I love myself so much. I bought myself
I love myself. Yeah, I love myself so much that I am willing to just simply show up for whoever's around me. I'm willing to show up for life. I'm willing to show up and say, I am here to celebrate life. And if that means being in service to somebody else, that means being in service to somebody else. If that means taking me out to go on a hike in Sedona, that's taking me out to go, that's what it is. But it's like, how do I show up? How do I show up for life? And what am I truly being called to, as Chris was talking about? What's my purpose? And it's not just what's my life purpose. What's my purpose today? What can I do today to move the ball forward in that larger purpose
today?
Because that's what I have. I don't have tomorrow, and I don't have yesterday.
Nope.
So it's up to me to let go of that identification from all that past crap that I hang on to, because the more I hang on to it, that gives me an excuse for not succeeding.
Not what?
Not succeeding.
Okay. How so?
Right? Because I'm hanging on. I've got all these reasons, right? I've got my 5-year-old. I've got my 8-year-old. I've got the 12-year-old from 6th grade that was constantly bullied. That was my life.
Roger that.
That's why I started. That was actually my parents put me in martial arts training in 6th because I was getting bullied in 6th grade, and I went for about a year. And I quit. I picked it up again later and finally finished at age 38.
Yeah.
but I did finish, and I was an assistant instructor for 3-4 years.
And you're a black belt.
And I'm a black belt. Yes.
I have a black belt in my other room, but it holds my pants up.
It just holds the pants up, right? Yeah, but this is the thing. It's like how long am I going to hang on to those stories in service of making sure the story comes true?
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
The stories of limitation.
Right.
There's a great writer, Thomas Troward, and I think it was the book, The Creative Process in the Individual, where he talks about when a child is born, they're a blank slate, and all the adults around that child start writing upon that blank slate.
Yes.
The blank slate of their consciousness, right?
That first 0 to 5 years.
Right. That first several years, right? And then around 12, when real cognitive thinking starts kicking in, right? That's when the opportunities arise where all of a sudden, oh, I realize I get to choose. I have the opportunity to choose and pull that slate out and look at those belief systems and say, okay, I can erase this one and put a new one in its place.
Mm-hmm.
Because quite honestly, if I just simply remove all the stories of limitation that I've been told, what's left is something that is powerful and dynamic and loving and joy-filled and filled with potentiality, limitless potentiality. Because the only limits we will experience going forward once we face all that stuff are the limitations we choose to put upon ourselves.
That's good.
Yep. I have a tattoo that says you're only limited by the parameters of your own mind. Bam.
There you go. And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what the wise people have been teaching us for over 5,000 years. In one way or another, it's there. In writing,
yes,
somewhere, even if it's just written in the collective consciousness, it's there. And it's again what I said back at the beginning. The only limitations we have are the limitations we buy into. Our belief systems is what holds us back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really simple to say, and I've been working on it for 50 years.
Never stops. We should always be working on it. I think that's one of the central themes of this conversation is that it never ends, and that we should have a sense of curiosity and a sense of adventure for those life challenges, because that's when we learn and grow the most, not when things are easy. It's in those times where we have to sit there and take a step back and go, how can I see this a little bit differently? And I think one of the overarching themes of tonight's conversation is also, what questions am I asking myself? Right. The deeper, it's not the surface layer of, oh, I didn't get the job. What's the deeper meaning? And then ask why a few layers deeper. Why do I make it mean that? Why am I taking this personal? Why do I feel like a victim? Why am I not speaking up for myself? Ask yourself those questions, ladies and gentlemen out there. And then you start to get different answers, and you start to take a step back and you sit there and say, what responsibility, what role, what activity can I take in being a part of that solution to create a different script, which I think is what we've been talking about tonight, right?
And it's what's the payoff for staying the same?
Right. That one's too. Yeah.
That's the big question is, what is the payoff for not changing?
There's no payoff. Regret is the payoff.
Oh, but we tell ourselves there is one. Otherwise, we would.
Right. We think that once we have that thing, then we'll be happy. Once I have the relationship, then I'll be happy. Once I'm better looking, then I'll be happy. Once I have money, then I'll be happy. Once my podcast is successful, I'll be happy. Once I look better, I'll be happy. And that's the ridiculous aspect of life, is that once you get that thing, then you're going to find something else, because the pattern is repeating itself, because you're not dealing with the core issue. Gentlemen, this has been amazing tonight. I want to respect your time. We've been going for an hour and 4 minutes. My final question to both of you, it doesn't have to be super long-winded, but to each of you, number one, it's a two-part question. Number one, where is your mental health today? As we are talking now, because we've been talking a lot about the past, where's your mental health today? And I'll share my answer as well. And then also, where can people get a hold of you and learn more about you? So, Chris, go. You first.
Me? Can I appreciate it first of all? Can I touch on something that was said earlier, real quick?
No,
Yeah,
this is the current moment, dude. No, of course you can.
So Lee was talking about the relationship that he has with Katie. That's a safe space for him, that he's able to articulate and kind of navigate through some questions and talk things out. That's a great space. But I believe that sometimes too many men, we isolate when we're struggling. And you talked about that. We're isolation when we're struggling. Right. They don't think that anybody is going to understand them. They don't have them people. They don't want people to judge them because they don't want to feel vulnerable in front of people. But
don't want to make a big deal out of it. That's what I hear a lot. I don't want to make a big deal out of it, but I'm just fucking quietly suffering and dying inside.
Yes. But
I hear that all the time.
You're dying. And I believe that brotherhood, man, like this podcast, this is a great space, man, because I believe that's going to save lives. It's going to save lives because real brotherhood, real people. Chris, you and I have checked on each other we have never ever met in years, but we was on Facebook or something, man, and we've been checking on each other for years before we actually connected. You know what I'm saying? But I believe that real brotherhood, man, we check on each other. We find out what's going on in your life, and not to be nosy, but to say, man, do you need anything? Is there something I can help you with? That's more of a mental thing than your brother who just want to ride with you and vibe with you. That's okay. But can you help me mentally? So I would suggest, man, that men go out, build a circle of friends, a circle of men who they can grow with, who they can heal with, that can hold each other accountable to navigate through this thing called life. Who's in your circle, man? Who is that man that you could call upon? Who's in your circle? Who challenges you to be the best version of yourself? Who challenges you to have a better mental mental mindset, like you just talked about? It's just crazy, man. I just feel like men, we don't go out there, man, and find that tribe of other men that we can actually relate to.
I think it's getting better. I think probably in the last 5 or 10 years, it seems like it's gotten a hell of a lot better. I can talk with a lot of dudes now, and I'm like, "How's your mental health?" And they'll be like, "Oh, bro, dude, I've been dealing."
It's good.
So yeah, it's been. I think also it's been normalized more by celebrities. Like I follow music a lot, so I find musicians, the lead singer of Disturbed, talking about mental health in a concert full of 80,000 people. So on and so forth. I could cite so many different examples. But where can people learn more about you, Mr. Christopher Allen? And thank you for that. Yeah, we're a team. We're all doing this together. We're no different. It's just about having the conversation and hopefully inspiring people to think a little bit differently about their own lives. That's the whole intention of the podcast.
Absolutely, man. My mental space, man, is absolutely amazing, man. I'm growing every day, like you talked about earlier. I'm putting one foot in front of the other, understanding where I am mentally for that day. I do a thing called charting every single day, where I actually chart my day out when I'm feeling sad, when I'm not feeling a certain way, and I'm charting to find out what things that I listened to. What was it that you listened to today that kind of got you off kilter? Did you make it to the gym today? Did that do it? Did you talk to somebody you weren't supposed to be talking to? Did somebody from your past reach out that you knew that you weren't supposed to be talking to that person, but now they trigger something inside of you? So what's going on in your day to day that's actually making you do what you do? So I'm actually charting. So my mental space is actually good. I have some parameters and things I have placed in, have some do not call lists. I have a do not call list. I have a do not answer list. I have some Facebook blocks. I have listen, in this season of my life, man, you are not going to mess up my peace.
Make that statement.
You know what I'm saying? I have worked too hard and too long to get this peace, and I'll be damned if I'm gonna let you mess it up. So as soon as I feel like you triggering me, you out. I'm done. I'm out. We're gone. But how can people get in contact with me? On the Grind Coach on Instagram. On Instagram, on the Grind Coach _ is my Instagram handle. Christopher Allen Facebook. So I'm on Facebook. I got a little TikTok channel out there as well, On the Grind Coach, that you reach me on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Social media, YouTube, also On the Grind Coach.
On the Grind Coach.
That's it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Christopher Allen. What about you, Mr. Lee? What's your current state of your mental health, and where can people get a hold of you and learn more about you?
I'm doing all right. My mental health is pretty decent these days. I've been doing a very, very deep dive the last few years on relationships and loving relationships and significant relationships. And it's been an adventure. It's been challenging. It's been exciting. It's been all the things. And it's been a path. It's been a path that I had never really deeply explored a lot. And what I have discovered is that, like most things, it's tied to everything. My relationship with my significant other and my family are all tied to my relationship with myself. I'm in a relationship with my higher power. And so, it's been an adventure. It's been good. It's been really, 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 really good. So people can find me. I'm available for spiritual coaching, mentoring, personal growth coaching, and you can find me Simple Spirit 101 on Facebook, Simple Spirit 101 on Instagram. I probably should do a Simple Spirit 101 on TikTok, but on TikTok I am Wyvern Rider, WYVERN, as in dragon, Rider, RIDER.
Yeah, you need to change that, because whenever you comment, I have to stop and think, who is that?
Who the heck is that? Well, I originally set it up just to follow Josh.
Oh, okay.
Because my son Josh, I'm going to out you, Josh, is very, very big in cosplay. People recognize him when he goes to Comic-Con.
You were telling me that.
Like 35, was it, Josh? 35. I think he had 40,000 at one point. The 35,000 followers on TikTok from doing cosplay, mostly tied to the very popular TV show Supernatural. He would cosplay the character Bobby Singer from Supernatural, among others, but that was his main one. So, yes, and also you can find my Sunday Talks on Scottsdale Center for Spiritual Living on YouTube. So,
yes, right there. Thank you, Katie, for that.
Thanks, Katie.
Katie's in the background promoting and doing all this stuff.
Yeah. So there you go. That's it, man.
Gentlemen, thank you both so much. I could talk to you for another couple of hours. People have asked me to do some long form content. I have a hard time sitting like this for any longer than an hour. So I don't know me doing 3-hour shows, but thank you guys for being here, and thank you for the wisdom, and more importantly, not only the wisdom, but thank you for the vulnerability and the truth that you both shared here in this conversation tonight, answering these questions, sharing the depths of your souls really is powerful. And I can't thank you. I respect you guys dearly and appreciate you both so much in my life. I'm going to place you guys backstage. If you need to jet, go ahead and jet. If no, I'm just going to finish out the show, but otherwise we could talk afterwards.
I just wanted to say hi to our friend Jacqueline. I haven't seen Jacqueline in quite a while. Hi, Jacqueline.
Yeah, she's always here supporting the show. She and I have chats on Messenger all the time. We keep each other supported. Yeah. So I'm going to place you guys backstage. Don't go anywhere, because I'm gonna finish out the show. Thank you, guys. So there we have it. Sorry we went over a little bit, hour and 14 minutes, but this is a very super important. There we go. It's a very super important conversation tonight about men's mental health. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Thank you so much for the people live commenting. Josh, Jacqueline, Robert. We got Josh in the house, Katie in the house. We have my friend Dennis from China tuning in. Thank you so much, Dennis, for tuning in. So there you have it. So if you came into the conversation watching the live replay or watching the live show, go back and watch the beginning of it, because this is all about the awareness. This is all about you being interrupted here. So sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you guys watch or listening on the podcast, my son just walked in here. Thank you, sweetie. My son just walked in here and drew me a picture, gave me a picture. So thank you, sweetie. I appreciate it. You can't see it, but my son drew me a picture, and the conversation tonight, right? Ultimately, it's about the questions you ask yourself, and ultimately, it's about where you're at on that path. Now, you can continue to lie to yourself and tell you everything's okay. Everything's fine. I'm fine. I'm good. I'm good. No problem. I got this. But sit there in quiet misery and quiet desperation, hoping, wishing, and praying that somebody stops and says, "Are you really okay?" And I'm here to tell you guys that when somebody asks you how you're doing, why not be honest? Why not say, "Hey, do you want me to tell you the answer that you want to hear, or do you want the truth? Do you have a couple of minutes? I'd like to share something with you." And sit down, or make an intentional date with somebody and say, "Hey, listen, I'd like to go out and have coffee with you and kind of just share some stuff that's going on in my mind." Both Lee and Chris in my life, I can reach out to them and say, "Hey, what's going on?" Or I could share something that's going on in my life and say, "Hey, do you have any advice? Do you have any feedback?" Or like Lee said, it's so important. "Hey, I just need to vent. I just need to vent. I just need to get some shit off my chest," because we hold it inside as men. We're proud. We're honorable. Man, I'm tough. I got this. But just imagine how much different your life could be if you let go of all that baggage you've been carrying around so admirably. "I'm so tough. I'm such a man. I've got this figured out." How about just saying, "You know what? I don't have it figured out." And I know a lot of you don't, because you talk to me and I see your social media posts and I'm like, you need to stop doing that. How about just coming out and saying, "Hey, I'm having a bad moment. Hey, my life isn't so great." And I'll tell you guys this, I've had a lot of you reach out to me like, "Man, Chris, I don't want to bug you. You know, you got it all together and you're always so energetic and you're always so positive and you're always so this and da 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 da." And to that, I always share, the truth. But I want to tell you guys something. People said that, and I did a particular show recently. I've done a lot of vulnerable shows lately. Episode number 305, I did my 56th birthday. I did lessons about life. That one I did. I also did the diary episode. That's what it was. Episode 312. I did it on April 15th. That's where I kind of shared truly what's going on in my life, the honest situations that I'm in, because so many of you think that I've got it all figured out and I'm all, he's always so positive and everything else. The truth is, like the guys have talked about tonight, I have tools. So I have tools where something may have, caused me to go down a rabbit hole for 3 months or 6 months before. Maybe now it's 3 weeks. Maybe it's 3 days. I'm kind of one of those people that goes deep on that shit. So I not look forward to it, but I also enjoy the journey of discovering where it is that I'm at and what's on the other side of it, because then I'm able to share it with you guys. But for me, it's been that vulnerable opportunity to say, "Hey, no, I'm not okay." And as I shared in that episode, you guys could go back and watch it. As far as where my mental health is at, I'll be honest with you guys. Earlier this year, I kind of went through a little bit of a very, not dark period, but it was very negative. Like my mind was just constantly going to the negative, thinking about death, thinking about how I'm going to die, thinking about how little time I have left, and thinking about that, and just like really kind of getting myself into an anxious state. And I started like being frustrated with myself. Like, why am I not the person that I was? Right. We talked about that. Chris talked about passion and purpose, and that is so important. But truthfully, like my passion and my purpose has always been to help people, fight for what's right and what's fair, to risk for which that mattered, to leave the earth a better place for who they were, to fulfill that legacy. But in recent times, I was like, I'm not as passionate about that anymore. I'm not as driven about that anymore. And I felt like there was like, I almost had to have a eulogy for the Chris that was, and frustrated that I don't have that same drive and same ambition. But instead of being frustrated at what I don't have, I sat there and again, looked at it of how I can look at it as a positive, and how I'm supposed to grow through this situation. And perhaps maybe letting go of some of that drive and ambition is part of the journey that I'm supposed to be on right now. And as luck would have it, or as spontaneity would have it, or I think everything happens for a reason, I like watching YouTube, and I watch either YouTube for education or for entertainment. So I'm either watching concerts or interviews, but a lot of it's personal development. A lot of it's me learning about AI or learning about the hero's journey or learning about whatever it is that I'm particularly going through. And I get a lot of spirituality stuff in my YouTube feed. And there was this video that I saw, and I saw the title of it, and I just kept scrolling past. And then I stopped, and I thought, then I went back to it, and I'm like, what is that about? And then I scrolled past it again. And then I went back to it, and I'm like, okay, it's only 15 minutes. That video I shared recently with my coaching group. It's 15 minutes. And I shared that. And I said, this is kind of what I'm going through. I think it speaks to where you guys are at too. And so I played that video for my coaching group, my group coaching group. And at the end of the 15 minutes, they were like, that kind of describes where I'm at. And in that video, it kind of said, sometimes we have to let go of who we thought we were supposed to be. And sometimes the idea of achieving this recognition, of achieving this validation, is partly to heal some of that stuff that's happened in our past. And so in this video, I could share it with you guys. Anybody who wants it, just let me know and I'll send it to you. But I think realize that's a tall statement with how many people listen to the podcast. Sorry about that. I'll put it in the show notes for this particular podcast as well. But for me, it gave me permission to relax. It gave me permission to just be, because I've always been that driven person. I've always been that person striving for the next thing, whether it's financial, whether it's impact, whatever it might be. And now I'm allowing myself the opportunity just to kind of be, not be so hard in the pain about the podcast, not hard in the pain about coaching clients, hard in the pain about whatever it else might be. I'm enjoying being a dad. I have an 8-year-old kid, right? So this is my life right now, and it doesn't need to be what it was. Now I get to be like, you know what? If I decided to retire tomorrow, how would my life look? And that was a very important question for me to ask at 56 years old. I've thought about that my entire life. Oh, when I retire, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. But if you start looking at 56 years old, and like, okay, I guess I'll retire at 70. I guess I'll retire at 65. But I started thinking about, why not retire right now? Why not just decide? I mean, more money and all those other things is great. But at the same time, you sit there and you burn yourself out to get to a place where you can finally relax. So why not just relax now and see what comes? And that is a very vulnerable place for me to be, because I've always had certainty in my life, certainty of my income, certainty of my opportunity to create income, certainty for my ability to impact people, which that has never gone down. But to sit back and just kind of go, hey, I deserve this. And it's awkward. I will tell you guys, it's very awkward for me to relax. It's very awkward for me to not be getting stuff done and validating myself. But in that awkwardness is growth. And in that awkwardness is the completion of who I'm supposed to continue to be on this journey, if that makes sense. So I know it's a bit ambiguous, but at the same time, it's enjoy the moments. Enjoy where you're at right now, but don't sit in that quiet desperation, being in a relationship that you know is not going to work, being in a career and a job that you know it's not going to work, being in a place, wherever it is in your life, with the tolerations. So I encourage you to do this. Take a look at what you're tolerating from yourself. Take a look at what you're tolerating from other people, and take a look at what you're tolerating from inanimate objects, and decide for yourself that you are worth more. You don't need to be the doormat anymore. You don't need to self-abuse yourself because you made a mistake or you did someone wrong, whatever it might be. Choose now to ask yourself those different questions. Choose now to find the opportunity in the chaos to be comfortable with whatever happens, right? So now for me, in the last couple of weeks, it's been awkward, but I found a new sense of joy in the journey of letting go. I found a new sense of joy in at 3:00 saying, hey, I'm just not going to do anything anymore. I'm going to go out in the garage and do stuff out there and work on my car or do this or do a project. So I encourage you to enjoy your journey, because it is fucking short. And if you continue to tolerate those things and those people and those messes in your life, and you continue to tolerate the negative self-talk, and you continue to tolerate yourself living in isolation, you'll end up with regrets. But I can promise you this from the conversation tonight, go back and listen to it again. Take notes on what it is that you want to implement. And by golly, when you start to implement this stuff, it's not easy. But in a couple of weeks, in a couple of months, in 6 months, in 8 months, in a year, just imagine how much different your life can be. And just imagine the confidence and the clarity and the sense of peace that you can have in your life when you remove a lot of the distractions that are holding you back. But it's ultimately your choice. It's ultimately my choice. It's ultimately Lee's choice. It's ultimately Chris Allen's choice. And it's that receptivity in your journey. So if you're listening to this, perhaps there's a reason, because everything happens for a reason. And what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, because I got it written on my arm. All right, I'm going to shut up. I got to go be a dad. I get to go be a dad. Like Lee said, you catch ourselves in these situations. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Next week, I could tell you one of the guests, and you guys may know him. His name's Jock Brokus. He just confirmed he's going to be on the show. So we're going to have another guest alongside him, just like we did with Lee and Chris tonight. And we're going to continue the conversation for the next couple of episodes talking about men's mental health. So again, info@noexcusescoach.com. What specifically do you want me to talk about and address with these gentlemen? How can we help you grow? How can we help you become a better part of your own life and society so that we can find more love and joy and community in the chaos that we see going on? How about that? All right. So love yourself, love other people. I'll be back here next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the video cast where we engage with you. Thank you again so much for you guys watching and listening. I appreciate you. Share this out. Let's make a difference in the mental health of the men in our lives, and let's build each other up. Okay. I love you guys. We'll see you next time on the Raw and Unscripted show. I'm Christopher Rausch.